Right, here on ESPNcricinfo Newsroom, we will now look back and try and make sense of how ball tracker works. Obviously, as a result of that LBW and that review from Dean Elgar against R. Ashwin. So we're going to better understand what is it that causes this sort of suspicion almost amongst the fans when you see a review that you think looks different to the naked eye. And we'll try and understand why technology still raises these sorts of questions. You got Hemant Buch, of course, has spent a large part of his life in the control room, knows everything there is to know about ball tracking and Hawkeye and production. And Sambit Bal will weigh in with his 2 cents too, because of so much that happened in those few moments with the review and what followed from the Indian team and its reaction. Hemant, welcome. The first thing I'd like to ask you is take us through the process of what happens the minute a decision which is referred or reviewed goes upstairs.
So the third umpire, obviously these days you can listen to them as well. So they come into my ear and they talk to me. They talk to the director, and they ask for certain things. There is a certain protocol that has been set about by Simon Toffel, and they follow it religiously. Even though, I mean, you would probably think that there are better ways of doing it, but they follow this protocol quite religiously. And the other thing, I mean, basically they run you through everything. First they want to look at the front foot. If it's an auto no ball, they would have already looked at it, and then they would want to look at the front on spin vision to establish whether there is an edge. And obviously 99.9% of the times they will say the bat and ball are very close together, or the bat and pad and the ball are very close together. So I want to have a look at ultra edge or hotspot if that is available, and then we go on to the ball tracking, and then obviously the track plays out as an animation.
Okay, now that's exactly where I want to start actually with ball tracker. So let our viewers know that this is the other end of who the third umpire talks to. He's talking to Hemant Buch at that time, whose voice for some reason we don't get to hear. Maybe in future, Hemant, that's a tip we can add. Maybe your answers should be on mic as well for the broadcast. But let's talk about ball tracker. We know sometimes it takes a little more time to build up. And you said it plays out as an animation. Just take me through from whatever you know of dealing with Hawkeye and ball tracker and the professionals involved here. What is it that they're actually doing? Is this a completely automated system? Is there manual input here?
If it was automated, we won't need 5 people to operate it, right? So obviously it is not completely automated. There are human interventions involved. There is a track which needs to be put in manually. They keep tweaking the system to make it better, but there is somebody who's looking at the tracking. There are 2 people involved in the tracking, and they have a look at all the data points, and then establish the track manually, the impact point manually, and then of course once it's fed into the machine, it comes up with its algorithm and sorts out whether or not it would have hit the stumps. So it's a system that that is controlled entirely by Hawkeye, which is a company that's I mean, Sambit is very well versed with the company. So it's an independent company. It's not really controlled by the broadcaster, and of course they are also answerable to the ICC, because the ICC has recommended this, and they share their data with the ICC, and each, especially all these controversial decisions are gone through with a fine-tooth comb at the end of the series.
And yet, Hemant makes an interesting point, Samit, and yet we find cricket fans furious at times, debating the decision. If it was left to the technology or the science, and if it is a system which cannot necessarily be influenced or corrupted by foul play, then why do we still feel the way? Why do some people still feel the way they do after what happened between Ashwin and Elgar?
I suppose a lot of people don't know the process, don't know how the system works. But it's traditionally, it's the broadcast company that appoints the service provider. It can be Hawkeye, it can be, I think in New Zealand it was for quite a while, it was Virtual Eye. So that is my only gripe with the system, is that the decision making stays, final decision making is with umpires who are appointed by the ICC, and the match referees, the ICC match referee. This is a system, you can say that they work with the ICC, but it's not a system that is controlled by the ICC. ICC doesn't pay for it. ICC pays the umpires, ICC pays the match referee, but if you took that away, if ICC took charge of this, I think this whole idea of any sort of talk of any bias or the home broadcasters manipulating the system will just go away. I don't think the home broadcaster has the ability to manipulate the system. Hemant would know much better than that. But it plays out because it's ICC doesn't control it. ICC doesn't appoint Hawkeye.
That is something similar to what Hemant tweeted in the time that we've had from the incident to this recording. And you said, while human error could have been at play, Hemant, the question of bias does not arise. How would you react as a broadcaster if you see a visiting team having a go at you saying that's not how it's done?
Actually, I mean, I would it's fulfilled a lot of what it set out to do, in that we no longer blame the umpires. We have, say, one decision in maybe 10 matches, 15 matches. This time maybe there was this one decision of Mayank Agarwal, but overall there are very few controversial decisions now, and even now the ire is not directed at the umpiring. It's directed at at this nebulous system and the broadcaster. So it's actually set out, done what it set out to do, which is minimize controversy. I think you can live with controversy if it happens, say, once in every 10 games or 15 games or whatever. It's so much better than, for example, VAR, where you seem to have, even though there are only 2 goals a game, there are about 5 controversies a game. So I think it's a fairly good system. The weakest link, I would suggest, is the human bit, because it is prone to error, and with Hawkeye, there are people of differing skills working on it. So some tend to be better than others, which is why you might be able to make out that at some points you have the track coming up much quicker than at other times. So you have different series, and you will see in some series it comes up quicker than at other times, which is where the skill of the operator also comes into into question. And while most of them are really, really good, there are some which who are better than others, as in all walks of life.
This whole thing of watching it live, naked eye, and saying, "Nah, I don't think that's going over the top from the naked eye." And I'm trying to think of whether this is even a legitimate concern of the cricket fan anymore, whether we are misguided or in thinking that what looks to the naked eye should necessarily be translated by the tech, or it should be the other way around. You trust the tech. If it's going over, at best, there's a little bit of human error involved, which in this case, you wouldn't argue that the point of impact necessarily is wrong. I have seen LBWs of ball track in the past where even when the ball pitched has been erroneously put on the at least on the broadcast. So there are instances there, but whether this is something that fans need to revisit, what looks to the naked eye necessarily may not be a legitimate concern.
Yeah, that's true. We are all responding to something that we have seen over years, the way we have seen the game, and sometimes it tells you that this is out. And that obviously, if we could sit at home and judge LBWs, then Hawkeye would not be needed, right? So umpires obviously see it much better than us. And what sort of made this a little more, I would say, charged or whatever, I think the Indian team also got more excited, because the umpire who was there, he was heard saying, "Oh, that's impossible." And that, I think, fueled a lot of, I mean, that's a natural reaction for him, because he clearly felt it was plumb. But the fans, you can't expect fans or even people like us who have seen quite a bit of cricket and watching at home to be able to, say this with any amount of certainty. You have to trust the technology that you're working with. But like Hemant has said, and as we all know, there is a human angle to it. And I'm not saying that there will be, I don't think the errors would be that significant, but there can be errors. And nobody can say there was an error yesterday, but it's just that it looked like an error. That's all you can say.